Hello, Saints. I'm looking at the little book of Jonah, and I realized something in there. When Jonah had come to them to preach the message, it was interesting that he was swallowed by a fish, and the fish spat him up onto dry land. And they must have heard him coming because, in Nineveh, their god was Dagon, the fish god. It must have been very interesting for them to hear about a guy coming up from Judah or Israel who is going to preach a message to them who had been spit up by a great fish on the shore. I think they were ready to listen to him. After all, God meets us where we're at. But I noticed that they fasted when they got the message. And Jonah comes in the city and he tells them that 40 days and God will destroy the great city. And so the king gets up and he takes off his robe and he gets himself all ready to fast as well with sackcloth and ashes. And down here, he says there in chapter 3, verse 9, he says, yes, let everyone turn from his evil way and from the violence that is in his hands. Who can tell if God will turn and relent, and turn away from his fierce anger so that he may not perish, or that we may not perish. They heard the message of Jonah, and they started fasting in sackcloth and ashes, and there was no promise. There wasn't, he didn't preach, God's going to destroy the city in 40 days unless you repent. He just simply said God's going to destroy it. And so they repented in sackcloth and ashes, them and their beasts, their animals, on the off chance God may not destroy them, that he would relent from what he was going to do. There was no condition given to this prophecy, but yet it was conditional. If you know what I mean. There's prophecies that are made that appear this is what's going to happen, and it happens, or it doesn't. There's a condition that maybe is assumed, or maybe not. The king didn't assume it. He was just saying, who knows, maybe God will relent and not destroy us. No promise. And yet they repented. I'm wondering how we apply that to our life. Will we obey God, repent of our ways, come back close to him, regardless of whether or not there is restoration in our life? But as we know the story goes, God did relent. He did not destroy the city. But he didn't come out promising that. I think of my own journey as I came back after the 22 years of wandering, and how God has restored to me a preaching ministry and has blessed me. He didn't promise to do that. I wasn't looking for that. It fell in my lap after a couple of years being back. And he has really restored to me the things that I had lost, and maybe more, for whatever we humans can comprehend. So think about that in your struggles and the things you're going through, that God is giving you warnings to come back, to repent. It may not be giving you a blatant promise about what he would do. Will you take him at his word and just trust him that whatever he does is in your best interest? I know I've experienced God. There's knowing about God, studying the Bible. Those who know me know that. But that's not the end of it. We have to experience God in our life. And that's how we become friends. Your friends, you experience, you know what you can trust and not trust over. God shows himself to be trustworthy. He shows himself to be a real friend. Because I've experienced him, not just read about him. And have you experienced God enough to be able to trust him like that? Pray you do. Keep your journey close to your heart as you seek God, knowing that God's already found you. And believe him. Take him at his word, or whatever he does. That you're in his hands. He knows what's best for you. And I think you'll find a blessing too. Blessings.